Okay, we're ready to begin. We'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Bryce Payne. I'm the Vice President of the Sales Department here at TCN. We'd like to thank you for joining us today for another installment of our informational webinars. Last month we highlighted our latest features release. I hope you were able to attend that. If not, we always post a copy of the webinar at a link that we will send out at the end of this presentation. We were very excited about the extensive amount of amazing features we were able to release last month. We are also getting very close to releasing our next set of amazing features, and we'll be highlighting those in our webinar next month. In today's webinar, we are focusing on the key elements for helping you get the most out of your TCN dialer system. We want to help you run as efficiently as possible and have found that through the power of the TCN dialer, you're able to produce more right party contacts with less agent hours than any other system. We've been able to put our system in direct side-by-side comparison to some of our competitors and have realized some really amazing results, and we'll be highlighting those today. Prior to that presentation, I did want to take some time to address concerns that we have been hearing from some of our clients regarding the latest FCC ruling that affects TCPA compliance. As you may or may not know, the FCC issued a declaratory ruling on June 18th in an effort to address the request for clarification on many points in TCPA compliance that are not clear or ambiguous. According to the FCC, the ruling will not take effect until they issue the official written document. At this point, the document has not been released and there's not a date given for that release yet. The main bullet points that came out of the meeting are basically the following. First off, they mention a green light for do not disturb technology. Basically, service providers can offer robocall blocking technology to consumers now. They empowering consumers to say stop. Basically, consumers have the right to revoke their consent to receive robocalls and robotexts in any reasonable way at any time. Reassigned numbers aren't loopholes. If a phone number has been reassigned, companies must stop calling the number after one call. Third-party consent. A consumer whose name is in the contacts list of an acquaintance phone does not consent to receive robocalls from third-party applications downloaded by the acquaintance. Affirming the law's definition of an auto dialer. Auto dialer is defined in the Act as any technology with the capacity to dial random or sequential numbers. This seems to be a very broad definition of auto dialer at this point. Text messages as calls. The Commission reaffirmed that consumers are entitled to the same consent-based protections for text as they are for voice calls to wireless numbers. Internet to phone text messages. Equipment used to send internet to phone text messages is an auto dialer, so the caller must have consumer consent before calling. And finally, very limited and specific exemptions for urgent circumstances. Free calls or texts to alert consumers to possible fraud on their bank accounts or remind them of important medication refills, among other financial alerts or healthcare messages are allowed without prior consent, but other types of financial or healthcare calls, such as marketing or debt collection calls, are not allowed under these limited and very specific exemptions. So the basic gist is that it appears they have expanded the definition of what is considered an auto dialer, giving more power to the consumer to dictate what calls and even text messages they can receive, which in turn expands the liability of businesses initiating outbound calls. TCN as a hosted contact center solution provider will be closely monitoring the events from this ruling and is actively looking at what tools or solutions we can provide to continue to aid you in your efforts to remain TCPA compliant. For example, we are currently having integration discussions with services that go beyond simply identifying if the phone number is a cell phone by actually matching if the number belongs to the name of the intended party to be called. And we'll continue to analyze and look at what technologies are out there. Also, for some time now, we've deployed a manual-only dial system when dialing cell phones. We also have several clients using our manually approved calling platform to aid in more efficient manual dialing. As far as this new FCC ruling is concerned, it appears there are already groups and associations working to appeal the ruling. I just read that the Newspaper Association of America is preparing an appeal, and that they are aware of a number of other business groups that are looking to appeal this ruling. There still is a lot to watch as this continues to play out over the next few months. As always, we will do everything in our power to quickly deploy the features that you need to continue doing what you do best. We do want to reiterate that we highly recommend you consult with a qualified TCPA attorney in order to get advice as to what technologies you intend to use and their compliance with the TCPA laws. At TCN, we cannot give legal advice, but we will act quickly to help you find the tools you need. Now getting back to the subject of the day, agent efficiencies. Today's presentation will be given by Dave Beathers. He has been with TCN coming up on 10 years now. He is the Vice President of Enterprise Sales here at TCN. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in institutional technology. And with his extensive experience here at TCN, he can show you some key ways to maximize the use of your system. At the end of the presentation, we will take time for questions. In order to ask a question, please email me your questions to the email shown on this slide here. It can also be found in the chat section of this webinar tool. You should be able to see it over there. So I will take those questions at the end, and we'll try to address as many as we can. So without any further ado, I will turn the time over to Dave. Dave, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Bryce. Hey, I'm very glad to be with everyone today. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to join us. I know there's a lot of concern about that past FCC ruling. Looks like we will be vigilant and staying on top of that and convey any information and insights that we have on that to you in the future. But one thing's for certain, we're definitely in this together. There's a lot of excitement in our company right now. As you know, the past release was very, very big, very large, a lot of good features that should help you in your business that came out of that. And there's a project that I'm actually deeply embedded with that we're going to show you a couple of insights with today that really is going to have a fundamental shift of how some companies do business. And so we're glad you're here with us today, and let's get started. We'll start with efficiency case study number 1. If you had 2 providers for your call center system and their quotes were as follows, which would you choose? Vendor A with 3.8 cents per minute, or vendor B with 3.4 cents per minute? Now, right off the bat, some may say vendor B, it's the cheapest, that must be the best. But most of you know better. I know you're pretty smart, so I'm betting that many of you said, well, it depends. What did I get, or what will I get in return for the higher price? Unfortunately, many times the individual that writes the check for the services doesn't always ask, what did I get for the money? Many times they're tasked with getting the cheapest priced out there. Now, we know that there's more to it than just that. Today we're going to explore a specific case study that I believe will be a benefit to you, and will give you some things to implement now to boost your return. 9 months ago, one of our reps started up a new client that was previously using a competitor's offering. The client really enjoyed the enhancements that TCN offered: happier agents, ease of use, flexibility, and the additional visibility gained. Everything was going fine. That is, until the client got his first invoice. It turns out that TCN's invoice was 4 times as much as the competitor. Actually, this was not a complete surprise, as we had been discussing it all month. But nonetheless, the client had a budget and he wanted to stick to it. To make a long story short, he wanted to stay at the same budget, but he could not tell us how much his agents were producing on TCN. And he wasn't willing to follow our suggestions to reduce the staff time that he put on TCN to stay within budget. So it didn't quite work out, and for a short time he went back to the competitor. A few months ago, I asked that same client to share productivity reports from the competitor, which I then compared with the productivity that they enjoyed on TCN. Now, while it was true that our invoice was 4 times larger, the analysis showed that TCN produced over 300% more right party contacts per agent hours. Now, these numbers and a lumberjack analogy, which I'll share later, were compelling enough for him to agree to a champion challenge. Here's the champion challenge. We ran a side-by-side 4-week test with one team on TCN for 2 weeks, followed by 2 weeks on the other dialer. The other team started on the competitor for 2 weeks and then ran 2 weeks on TCN. Here are the results. Now, as before, TCN was 4 times more expensive. But don't stop there. We need to look deeper. Looking deeper, TCN produced 329% more right party contacts per agent hour. That's awesome. Now, sometimes, even though numbers look good, they can be challenging to interpret. So what does this really mean to the bottom line? A call center's single biggest expense and most important resource is an agent's time. If we look at the net profit for each agent hour, I'll start over. I want you to make sure that you get this. This is a long sentence, but it's important. So if we look at the net profit each agent hour produces, before TCN, this client was spending $1 per agent hour on the competition and produced a net profit of $31 for each hour the agent was operating. With TCN, yes, you go from paying $1 to pay $4 per agent hour. But when you triple an agent's effectiveness, it means that you now earn $101 of net profit with TCN, going from $31 to $101 per agent hour of net profit. Now that's a big difference. Basically, TCN is helping them print money. Now, it's not always about the price per minute in tenths of a penny that you're paying for TCN, but what it is and should always be about is what you get in agent efficiency returns. For whatever reason, it took these numbers and a lumberjack analogy to help give this client the insights to see the light. Now you've seen the numbers, so let me give you the lumberjack analogy. We're going to compare a call center with a lumber business. Now, if there's any of my tree hugger friends out there, don't get upset. TCN is eco-friendly, and this is just a cloud-based analogy. No trees will be harmed. Imagine that you have a section of trees that you need to harvest. You have 150 lumberjack employees, these are your agents, and when they show up for work, you issue each of them a bat. Nice. The bat is cheap. Hey, that's good, right? They can swing that bat fast, and I can definitely hear them working. That's kind of like a call center floor, right? You know if that call center floor is busy, you hear that buzz, you know if they're taking calls. Now every day I can see 150 agents with bats working hard, swinging away and staying busy. But really, with a bat, how productive is each swing? How much lumber can you produce with a bat? Well, of course, we can't let that happen to you. So luckily for you, TCN comes by and lets you replace bats with, wait for it, brand new chainsaws. I love it. This guy looks like he's from a zombie show, doesn't he? Well, we'll leave it. We'll just say he's a lumberjack right now. So brand new chainsaws, all your agents, 150 agents, 150 chainsaws. Now the best part is that you only have to pay for the time that you use them. So now this cost, isn't it higher? Doesn't it cost more than chopping wood with a bat? Well, no, maybe not. Let's take a look. How much does the lumberjack's time cost? With the right tool, your lumberjacks can be more productive with less effort in the same amount of time. Now the only question for you now becomes, do I use less lumberjacks to do the same amount of work? Or, like our previous client, do I take on a bigger section of trees? Let's consider the previous case study again. Now I admit that most clients should be able to tell on earnings alone if they switched from a bat to a chainsaw. Why did this client not see the forest through the trees? Well, it was the focus. The focus was on the price of renting the chainsaw. This caused him to completely miss the cost of the wasted hours of the lumberjacks that were using the bats. Now you have to establish the profitability of your agents. You have to. You have to be able to know some level of productivity to be able to know if you have increased it, right? That's what baselines are for. This client didn't have a very good baseline, and they had no idea how profitable it was to be on TCN versus the bat. Now you can't improve what you can't measure. You have to have metrics, but not just any metrics. This client, they did have metrics. They showed that his agents were busy. He could tell. They were out there swinging away. He could tell. But they did not show if his agents were productive. I know that you probably have some go-to metrics, some key metrics and stats that you look at. I'd like you to consider them for a moment. Do those metrics and statistics show business, or excuse me, do they show busyness, or do they show productivity? Do you say, I know my agents are working, but I just can't tell if they're making money or costing money? So let's take a closer look at some very common metrics in a typical collection agency call center. Note that for many metrics, our agencies have to pull them out of their debtor management system or their client management system, because for whatever reason, they're not tracking them in TCN. There could be a few reasons for this, but it's unfortunate. Mostly there are some companies out there that are pulling them out of their CRM. So here are a few types of metrics. Aren't these good? We've got dial attempts, agent connected calls, third parties, right party contacts, promises, payments, conversion rate. These are good, right? Oh no, not the bat. But if you think about it, these metrics mostly can't tell you your productivity. Usually, they only show busy work. You have to not only measure things, but you have to measure them over a certain amount of time. Specifically, how much during an agent hour. Bat busy metrics or chainsaw productive metrics. It's not always easy to tell. Can you use these metrics to identify agents that need help? Can you use them to identify hours in the day that are most productive and when you should staff up? This is really where most call centers lose insight into their agent floors. They all look busy, and in fact, an agent may have a fantastic close rate, but what if they only had one possible close that day? Not so sweet, not so productive. The previous case study client spoke of this when they said about the competitor, we do have a very high conversion rate when the agents speak to debtors. Our agents also only wait 20 seconds between calls. Man, that sounds awesome. That sounds very busy. But listen to this part. But 80% of the calls the agents connect to were answering machines that the dialer missed. What? 80% of the agent's work was spent connecting to answering machines. They were definitely staying busy, but productive? Great. Hey, we're back to the chainsaw. Now, these are the same metrics, but do you notice the difference? One change lets them be much more useful to us and much more insightful. They all have a common denominator of agent hours. Per agent hour becomes the common denominator standard of measuring production. How much work is each worker producing each hour? Oh, it's simple, right? You immediately measure all success based on what is accomplished during 1 hour of your most important and costly resource. I'm going to say that again. This is so vital. You immediately measure all success based on what is accomplished during 1 hour of your most important and costly resource, your agent. Simply divide each metric by the agent hours, or as it says here, by the full-time employee hours used to secure that statistic. Now you can see, measure, and maximize your production and profitability. Here are just a few more metrics to consider. Now, this is not a comprehensive list at all, but it should give you a glimpse into some more effective ways to measure performance and production. These different metrics, if you consider them on the agent level, if you're trying to measure your line of business versus another, or if you're trying to measure strategies, maybe staffing changes, maybe even dial patterns, what phone numbers are you dialing, and so forth. And even evaluating any slight strategy manipulations. How effective are they? If you can measure it, you can see change. If the change is good, how can I replicate? If the change is bad, how can I eliminate? Now, I think I've said it a few different ways already by now, but you can only improve what you measure. Right now, TCN can report very specific termination codes marked by the agents. So status dispositions, how did that call end up? Additionally, TCN will be rolling out a new complementary business intelligence product within the next 1 to 2 months. So excited about this. Now we are going to give you an exclusive preview in just a few minutes. None of our clients have seen this yet. Now, in order to take full advantage of the tools that we offer now, today, and the business intelligence product that you're going to have in your hands within the next so many weeks, it is critical that you consider and that you adopt best practice agent responses or term codes. Why? I have personally reviewed dozens and dozens of different agent responses or term codes, and unfortunately, they're not equal. With many of the current termination codes in use, no two agents will sit at their desk, take the same call, and pick the same result code. Normally, there is a little bit of ambiguity in what does that mean? It was machine. Well, was that just dead air? Did I hear a click? Did I hear an actual recorded voice, the end of it? Did I hear a beep? There's a lot of ambiguity in the terms that unfortunately many of our clients and many in the industry use. And it's very difficult to be able to take those and really hone in on what is happening on the call center floor. So I'm not going to give you a bad list and a list of bad examples, but I am going to give you a good short list of good terms that you should probably adopt or consider, at least consider. And I would actually suggest that if you adopt these, you're going to be pleasantly surprised when business intelligence comes out, because you're going to find that there are already some default templates that may just have these best practice phrases in them. So you may not even have to do any configuration when BI comes out and when business intelligence comes out, because it's already going to be ready for you. So these terms, there's two main reasons why I do this. These terms make it easy. These terms make it first easy for one or many agents to constantly choose the same code for call connections that they take. And secondly, they're descriptive enough that it is easy and generally very accurate to be able to categorize them. Specifically, which calls were live conversations and which live conversations were right parties. I'll just give you an example. Just look how easy it is to sort these result codes. These agent responses fall into two main camps that I find are most helpful when evaluating a dialer, when evaluating a line of business, when scoring agents. The list goes on and on and on. Very key to effective metrics. Productivity or productive calls where the agent had a conversation with someone. And the other category is unproductive calls, or calls where the agent did not speak with anybody. They didn't converse, they didn't have an interaction. The main point, once again, I'm back to this over and over again, if you're not tracking it, you can't measure it. Now additionally, these codes can also selectively be used to put that phone number or an alternative number on the account back into the dialer to be called again according to a very specific dial schedule. So if you do happen to get a machine message that slips through, that can be, and where it didn't leave a message according to your compliance rules, maybe you can go ahead and call that again in an hour. Our system will automatically take care of that, but you have to use very straightforward codes that are clean to understand and to know if it's going to be compliant or not to call that number again. Now, I think we're at the point to where many of you have been waiting. We've actually been trying to keep some clients just calm and patient with us while we get to this point. But if one of your favorite play toys happens to be a pivot table, or if you have ever crashed Excel, the spreadsheets, because of too much data, but actually more importantly, if you're here today because you are looking for the next thing that can take your business to the next level, now I'm going to go ahead and make your day. TCN is about to change how call centers conduct business. You are going to participate in something that has never been done before. Nobody's doing this. There's not a dialer or a call center inbound and outbound platform out there, let alone the best in the world like TCN, that has business intelligence built into it. I'm not talking about exporting data. I'm not talking about consulting with outside individuals that don't know your business and don't have any concept of how you operate. I'm talking about a merged single platform that has your entire call center platform of communication with voice, merged with the business intelligence insights of competitive analytics. So no more spreadsheets, immediate access to streamlined reporting, faster custom reports. I'm so excited to share this with you. Now, the first thing that business intelligence insights will do for you is it's gonna, that individual that's in a back room somewhere trying to not be bothered, but it's gonna free up half or more of that individual's time that they've been spending, that he or she has been spending in Excel or in Crystal reports or in an Access database. Right out of the gates, we're going to recover at least half or more of their time. So that directly translates to $15,000 to $40,000 of annual savings, if not more. But let's not focus too much on that savings. There's a whole lot more, and the focus really should be on productivity. In just a few minutes, I'm going to give you the exclusive preview of this latest product. Now remember, you can only improve what you can see and measure. I've said it probably half a dozen times already. Competitive and analytics is going to give you business intelligence insights to see, measure, and improve how you run your call center. A little bit of history. Until TCN, until this product, data mining and business intelligence with big data from call centers has really been out of the reach for most of the industry. You know, usually the NSA and a few others have only been the ones doing it, and nobody's been doing it with call centers. It's for these reasons. One, it's just too big. It has to be exported. Number two, usually it requires external consultants. Number three, it usually requires internal dedicated staff to export, to translate, and then to receive the analysis and to make recommendations. Number four, once the analysis comes back in, you know what? That process can take a while, and sometimes the analysis is out of date and it's not even relevant. And because of that time delay, many of the findings, even on the micro level, are just not applicable and really can't be used to the detail of what's possible. And then finally, number five, everything that I just mentioned really makes it too costly, and that's why you probably haven't really delved too deeply into business intelligence with your call center yet. So we're still working out some of the details. We're doing some of the fluff and buff polish right now, and about to get it into beta. And like I said, it's going to come out over the next couple of weeks. But it's just a couple of weeks away from being in your hands. So let's take a look at it. Competitive analytics is, once again, it's going to be browser based, and it's going to be at your fingertips. What you're seeing here is an interface. It's very simple. We have what are called insights, which are the individual displays, the visual displays, or whether they're charts or graphs. And we have dashboards, which is a combination of some saved insights. Now, both of the insights, all the insights can be saved to a specific dashboard. And as you see here, there's really no limit to how many dashboards you have. So you can define exactly what you want to see. You'll be able to save those as favorites, and it's going to be very simple for not only you, but for any of your staff or any of your C-level to be able to have those insights and those dashboards available to look at it at a moment's notice. This is really phenomenal, and I'd love to hear your feedback at the end and after the webinar. But I'm willing to bet that nobody has seen this in a call center unless they've shelled out big bucks for Domo or something else. But once again, even a Domo can't touch this because this is merged into your platform. You're going to have your normal platform 3, your P3 reporting menu, and then you'll have additional tabs which will say Insight, Dashboards, and Settings just right there on your access. So you'll just be able to toggle over to it and have it open. Let's take a look at some of these insights. Again, you can have the images portray charts, very easy to sort and modify. You can have bar charts, line graphs, trend analysis, pie charts, heat maps, country and province maps. Here we're showing how many inbound calls are coming from what country or what states, or I'm sorry, this is outbound calls that you've called. So the darker it gets, the more calls have come to originated from that location. Here we have call types, inbound, manual, outbound, and you can see how many agent sessions by day. So there's a lot of ways to slice and dice the data. If you think about it, on TCN, there are thousands, if not millions, of data points. And we have access to those on your secured account. And so it only makes sense to merge in business intelligence tools so that you can data mine your own data and see the trends, the analysis, the anomalies. What's with that dip right there? Well, let's take a look. I can take a look at that dip and I can say, you know what, I can't see that well. Let me drop off the inbound calls and let me drop off the manual calls. So I'm left with the outbound calls, and I can see that at 10:30 a.m. for entire selection that I have, which looks to be about 3 months of a time period, I have 12,000 calls that went out versus 88,000 calls. Why did we dip? And you can start asking questions. You can start coming up with hypotheses of, well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. Or better yet, you can use our pre-configured dashboards and insights to be able to see exactly what caused the anomaly or the dip that was perhaps a dip in productivity or a dip in profitability. So very interactive. You can see here is a chart, results by the hour. So once again, for the date range that I've selected, and this is just awesome that you can go in here and you can be very exact on your time period that you want to consider. And or you can do a relative date. Well, let's go from 6 months ago or 6 seconds ago or a week ago or a year ago. Or you can be absolute with your date and time period, which is it's very, very granular, the level of insight that you can have access to. So I'm going to come here, and so let's just say from 12 to 3 o'clock, I want to take a look here, and I've got link calls, I've got busies, I've got no answers, and then I've got invalids. Well, that's a lot of invalids. Yeah, this particular data set, that's true. So let's dismiss the invalids and hone in. I want to see, busies don't concern me. I really want to look at no answers and link calls. I don't even want to look at cancels. So there it is. In just a few clicks, that access is real. You don't have to ask an analysis or your staff member to go export data to build a certain custom report. It's all here. You honed in too far. Well, I want to see another trend and another. If you want to see this for one time period, you want to see the same insight for another time period, you simply populate another chart or another insight with a different selection process on the time period that you want to consider. So I'm going to zip through a couple of these. Again, this is just a preview and a teaser, but man, this is so powerful. Here's a couple of the dashboards that we're working on that have pre-configured insights that you don't even have to manipulate. So when you turn your account on, when this gets turned on your account, you can go in here and see this with your data. So for example, this one is a chart that is showing by hour of the day, and it's showing total calls, and it's showing abandoned calls versus your wait time. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You have your total calls, and then here you've got your average wait time, and then it shows your abandoned calls. So the higher your average wait time is, of course, the more abandons you have. But now you can see that direct correlation, in fact, that causation that caused your abandons. very, very powerful. You can hone in and say, you guys, what is going on from 2:30 to 3:15? We need to staff up at that time. Why are we letting people take breaks when that might be our most productive time? Over here we have some other examples. Cost summary report, you can see everything collectively on one chart instead of multiple drill downs and multiple pages. You can just put it on one chart. Here we have talk duration by the second. So I've got 12,907 calls that had a 30-second talk time. So this really hones in and say, yeah, I'm doing a lot of talk time. I'm getting a lot of link backs or connect backs. But you know what? On average, these are the calls that are my money calls because they're longer duration calls. Really lets you hone in and into the insights you want to see. And you can obviously see your agent-specific reports and even come up with your own scoring metrics. I'm going to show you a little bit more about what's possible in a second. Here, talk time, average wrap time, and wait time. Maybe you want to sort this so that you can see, hey, who is my agent that has the largest wrap time versus talk time. So you can see it and you can take action on that immediately. Here's another group of insights. I've got so much data in here. This is so fun. You can drill down into it and see. You can readjust these if you want to. Yes, yeah. And you can see different charts that we have here. This one actually shows invalid numbers, how many times you've called a specific number. And we've actually got the same numbers, and it shows how many times that it actually scored a good hit. So sometimes our clients, we don't want them to process or send to script tracing numbers that are good numbers. So with this report, you can select any of your invalids that have an actual score, and it's pretty cool. We actually calculated a score that shows the likelihood that that's an invalid number. So the higher the score, the more likely that that is an invalid number, and you should be able to process that a different way and try and get another phone out of it. So you're going to have some pre-configured dashboards. They're not going to be overwhelming. Our customer support team is going to be able to walk you through those. And as you can see here, that it's really comes down to what do you want to see. Right here is an example of conversion rate. I mean, can you honestly go to your system, even TCN right now, and look and know your conversion rate for each agent? Not only that, but by type. So manual calls versus inbound calls versus outbound calls. It's ridiculous. I get so excited about this. I'm going to drill into one of these insights. Each of these insights you can actually go in and you can manipulate. If you didn't like the bar chart, you can go in and you can just tag it. You can say, I don't want to see this. I want to see something else, and I want to see that as a line graph. So even though that this is how many ever months of data, it only takes seconds to change. So maybe you're working on a client report. You want it to look a very specific way. You only want to show this on one page. You want to show that on another page. You can export these as images. If you want the chart instead, here's my chart, and I can export this as CSV. It's all at your fingertips. This is good stuff, and I get excited, as you can tell. Formatting changes. I can choose whatever data I would like. If I want to add additional rows to my chart, my insight, if I want to add additional lines to my line graph, I just choose it. I choose my functions, and I go in and get my data point. Whatever data point that is, if it's agent related, if it's call related, if it's data field that I've upload related, if it's agent responses that I've captured, it's all there. And it's easy to manipulate and sort and change and refine. Again, we have our defaults, but you can go hog wild on how you want to really personalize it to your needs. We are going to be offering some different ways that we can help you with the training for additional packages. And if you need our help to consult and to work with you, obviously we know the dialer, we know how to quickly pull the information you want to do. And so there might be some real benefit of working together with you. But here's some agent codes. So you can go in and say, I want all my busies, all my right parties, all my payments, or I just want anything that considers or that contains the words right party. And I want this and I want this, but don't include that, or pull this data. So, man, it's just fun. Again, but I like pivot tables. You might not enjoy this as much as I do, but I think you will. So that's the preview. We're going to have another webinar that gets into greater details and explains the packages that we're going to be offering. Again, the intro package is that you have all these tools at your availability and your disposal, but you're only going to be able to look at about 10 to 14 days worth of data. It's just too expensive for us to have this much horsepower and this much data and not charge for it. We can only give it to you for free for 10 to 14 days approximately, and after that we have to charge for it. But if you do pay for the extended history searches, that data will be available for you, and you can really get into some data trends and some comparisons and really have a good time with it. Let's see. So that brings me full circle again to this point. Since this is coming out and since that you can benefit from it without paying a dime, you need to prepare your data now. There's 4 suggestions that I have for you. Number 1, update your mandatory and make mandatory your agent responses or term codes. I would suggest using our best practices that we'll have available after the webinar. Number 2, order separate DIDs for better inbound call tracking. If you want to track your paper, if you send out a new mailer out, throw a different DID on that document so you can see how effective it was. If you have an email campaign like our friends at Advantage Sourcing does, they have a different DID for almost every single type of effort that they have, and it's incredibly effective to be able to track their productivity and profitability. They're going to love this because they have DIDs for everything, business groups, teams, and so forth. If you throw those DIDs on that, whether it's a caller ID or whether it's a paper, then you can track it and you can see what's generating you the biggest return. You'll be able to see that on TCN. Number 3, create agent pause time codes. We just had that release, last release. Pause time, whether they're on break, whether they're sick, whatever the case may be, that will help you with your agent effectiveness and efficiencies. Number 4, create agent trigger durations. These are pop-ups where you can see how many times an agent has exceeded 5 minutes in wrap-up or some other status that you will be able to then help your agents become better and more efficient agents. So that is the homework. Again, start building the data to mine right now, even before we have released business intelligence, and you'll be glad you did. Here's the suggested best practice response turn codes. We'll send this out in an email to all that signed up for the webinar. But that's what I have, Bryce. Turn the time back over to you.
Great, thank you, Dave. Thank you so much. It's incredibly impressive information, and it is exciting to kind of see the abilities we have for analyzing the data. There are many aspects of the functionality of the TCN system that can give you great advantages. Our amazing customer service representatives are ready to help you implement any new strategies that are a good fit for your needs. I am going to change a little bit since we're bumping up against the end of the time frame here. Any questions that we have received, we will have our customer service department reach out to you and answer those questions for you at this time. We will send out a copy of this webinar for review, and we'll also send you a link where it can be accessed in the future along with other presentations that we'll do this year. Before we end today, I would like to bring to your attention to a promotion that we have going on right now. Many of our clients refer associates of theirs to us because of the benefits they have seen with our system and would like to reward those that have taken the time to do that. We are currently offering $150 to anyone that gives us a referral that we are able to bring on as a client. So we'd like to ask that you take a few moments and reach out to some of your contacts, let them know about the advantages of TCN, and get yourself some money for a nice weekend activity. Remember, next month we will be highlighting some new features. We'll go more in depth into the analytics tool that Dave just highlighted, and we'll be able to show you some of the new features we're coming out with. We're very excited about some of these things and the others that we'll show you. We look forward to joining you then. Until then, we're here to help. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to contact your customer service account representative. We thank you for your time today, and we wish you a great day. Thank you, everyone.